Have you ever found yourself lying in bed at night, already exhausted, and thought, if I just drink one more glass of water, I'll sleep better, only to wake up an hour later? Then again, shuffling to the bathroom in the dark. If that sounds familiar, I need you to listen very carefully, because what feels like a harmless habit may be quietly putting your heart, your brain, and even your life at risk. This is not about discomfort. This is not just about broken sleep. In older adults, waking up to urinate multiple times a night is one of the strongest hidden warning signs we see before serious heart events, nighttime falls, and sudden loss of independence. Studies following seniors for over a decade show that those who wake up 2 or more times a night to urinate face nearly double the risk of cardiovascular disease compared to those who sleep through the night. And yet most people are never warned because they're told this is just part of aging. My name is Dr. Richard Hale, and after decades caring for older adults, I can tell you this with certainty. Frequent nighttime urination is not something you should ignore, and it is not something you simply have to live with. In this video, I'm going to show you why this happens, why drinking water before bed can quietly make it worse, and most importantly, the simple, safe change you can make tonight that may help your body finally rest, because the real danger doesn't start in the bathroom. It starts long before you ever open your eyes in the dark. Most people believe nighttime urination happens simply because they drank too much water before bed. That idea sounds logical, it feels intuitive, and it's repeated so often that almost everyone accepts it as fact. But in my clinical experience, this explanation misses the real problem. And because it misses the root cause, it keeps people stuck in the same exhausting cycle night after night. The truth is, this nighttime urination in older adults is not primarily a water problem. It is a rhythm problem. More specifically, it is a sign that the kidneys are no longer receiving the correct signal to slow down and rest at night. When we are younger, the body follows a very precise nighttime program. As evening approaches, the brain releases a hormone called antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. Think of ADH as a nighttime supervisor. Its job is to tell the kidneys, it's time to reduce urine production. The body is sleeping now. This allows us to stay asleep for hours without interruption, even if we drank water earlier in the day. But as we age, especially after 60, this signal weakens. A DH is released later in smaller amounts or sometimes not strongly enough at all. The kidneys don't realize it's nighttime. So instead of slowing down, they keep filtering fluid almost as if it were daytime. This is why so many older adults wake up again and again, even when they swear they barely drank anything after dinner. I remember a patient in his late 60s who told me, "Doctor, I stopped drinking water after 6 p.m., but I still wake up 3 times every night." He thought he was failing. In reality, his kidneys were simply following the wrong clock. The water wasn't the cause, it was just triggering a system that was already out of sync. Large population studies support this. Research in geriatric medicine shows that reduced nighttime ADH activity is one of the strongest predictors of nocturia in older adults, even more than evening fluid intake. In other words, 2 people can drink the same amount of water, but the one whose kidneys fail to switch to night mode will wake up far more often. This is why simply telling people to drink less at night often backfires. When the body becomes mildly dehydrated, urine actually becomes more concentrated. That concentrated urine irritates the bladder lining, making it more sensitive and more likely to send urgent signals to the brain. So the person drinks less water, yet wakes up more often and becomes even more confused and frustrated. Here's the key insight: most people never hear drinking water before bed is usually not the root cause. It's a catalyst. The real issue is that the kidneys are working at the wrong time under the wrong instructions and without proper coordination with the brain. And this matters far beyond sleep. Kidneys that never truly rest at night are under constant strain. Over time, this can accelerate kidney aging, increase nighttime blood pressure, instability, and place extra stress on the cardiovascular system, all while the person believes the problem is just getting older. So when someone tells me I wake up every night to urinate, I don't ask how much water they drank. I ask whether their body still knows the difference between day and night. Because once that internal rhythm is lost, no amount of water restriction will fix the problem on its own. And this brings us to the next, even more important piece of the puzzle, one that surprises almost everyone I talk to. Because what actually wakes you up at night may not be your kidneys at all. It may be your brain quietly running out of energy. If the kidneys working at the wrong time were the first piece of the puzzle, then what I'm about to tell you next is the part that changes how you see nighttime urination forever. Because for many people, the reason they wake up to urinate has very little to do with how full their bladder is. Instead, it has everything to do with what's happening inside the brain in the quiet hours before morning. Here's something most people have never been told. While you're asleep, your brain doesn't shut down. It remains one of the most energy-hungry organs in the body even at night. In fact, during deep sleep and dream phases, the brain continues to burn glucose to regulate breathing, heart rhythm, memory consolidation, and hormonal balance. That energy has to come from somewhere. As the night goes on, especially in older adults, blood sugar levels can dip slightly. Not enough to cause shaking or sweating, but enough for the brain to sense a problem. And when the brain senses even a mild shortage of fuel, it reacts fast. It doesn't politely wake you up and say, "I'm running low." Instead, it pulls the loudest alarm it has access to. That alarm is the bladder. I've seen this countless times in practice. A patient wakes up around 3 or 4 a.m., rushes to the bathroom and urinates only a small amount. They come back to bed, but now their heart is pounding, their mind feels alert, and sleep feels impossible. They assume the bladder woke them up. But in reality, the bladder was just the messenger. The real wake-up call came from the brain. Physiologically, this makes sense. When the brain senses low nighttime energy, it activates the sympathetic nervous system, the same system responsible for fight or flight. Heart rate increases, alertness spikes, blood pressure may rise slightly. And one of the fastest ways for the brain to force the body awake is to trigger the urge to urinate. Research in sleep and metabolic medicine supports this connection. Studies show that older adults with nocturia often experience subtle nighttime glucose instability, even if they do not have diabetes. The brain interprets this instability as a threat, and the bladder becomes the delivery system for that message. This explains something that confuses so many people: why they wake up to urinate even when the bladder isn't full, and why they feel wide awake afterward. If the bladder were the real problem emptying, it would bring relief and sleep would return. But when the brain is the driver, the night is already disrupted. One woman once told me, "Doctor, I don't even feel that much urine coming out, but once I'm up, I'm up." That sentence says everything. The bladder wasn't full, the brain was unsettled, and this is where many well-intentioned solutions fail. People restrict water. They avoid evening fluids. They force themselves to go back to bed. But none of those strategies address the real issue: an anxious brain that doesn't feel safe enough to stay asleep. Here's the key insight. Nighttime urination is often the brain's workaround for low nighttime energy. It's not logical, but it's effective. The moment you stand up, move, and turn on the light, glucose rises, circulation increases, and the brain gets what it needs. Unfortunately, that relief comes at the cost of broken sleep and increased nighttime strain on the heart and kidneys. Once you understand this, everything changes. Because if the brain is waking you up to look for fuel, then the solution isn't in the bathroom. It's in how you support the brain before you ever lie down. And this leads us directly to the turning point of this entire conversation. Because when you know that nighttime urination is often a brain-driven alarm, not a bladder failure, you begin to understand why a very small, very specific intervention before bed can make a dramatic difference. But understanding the brain's role is still not enough, because the real breakthrough comes when you see how one simple step can calm the brain, quiet the alarm, and finally allow the kidneys to rest. Once you understand that nighttime urination is often triggered by an unsettled brain, not a weak bladder, the solution begins to come into focus. Because if the brain is the one pulling the alarm, then calming the brain before sleep becomes the real priority. And this is where the idea of one small spoon before bed stops sounding like a folk trick and starts making physiological sense. Let me be very clear. This is not about eating more at night. It's not about snacking. And it's certainly not about adding weight or burdening digestion. What we're talking about here is a very small, very targeted signal, just enough to tell the brain, you are safe. There is enough energy. You can stay asleep. I once worked with a patient who told me, "Doctor, I fall asleep fine, but every night around 4 o'clock, my body betrays me." He would wake up suddenly, heart racing, mind alert, and within minutes, he'd feel the urge to urinate. What changed everything for him was not medication, not water restriction, and not bladder training. It was stabilizing his brain's nighttime energy. Here's the science behind it. During sleep, the brain relies on a steady, slow release of glucose to maintain vital functions, breathing rhythm, blood pressure regulation, and nervous system balance. In older adults, the liver's ability to release glucose smoothly throughout the night becomes less reliable. When glucose drops too low even briefly, the brain interprets it as a threat. That perceived threat activates the sympathetic nervous system. Heart rate increases, blood vessels tighten, alertness spikes, and one of the downstream effects of this activation is increased signaling to the bladder. The brain isn't trying to empty urine, it's trying to wake you up. A small, well-timed source of slow-releasing energy before sleep changes this entire cascade. It helps maintain stable blood glucose levels through the most vulnerable hours of the night. When the brain doesn't sense danger, it doesn't activate the alarm system. When the alarm stays quiet, the kidneys finally receive the message they've been waiting for: it's okay to rest. Studies in sleep physiology and metabolic health support this mechanism. Research shows that stabilizing nighttime glucose reduces sympathetic nervous system activation, lowers nighttime heart rate variability spikes, and improves sleep continuity in older adults. In simple terms, a calmer brain leads to a quieter night for the bladder, the kidneys, and the heart. This is why the one-spoon approach works so well when it works correctly. It doesn't force sleep. It doesn't sedate the brain. It reassures it. And there is a profound difference between the two. Think of it like this. If your brain is a night guard waking you up repeatedly because it thinks the lights are about to go out, the solution isn't to argue with the guard. The solution is to quietly turn the lights back on just enough so the guard can sit down and relax. That's what this small intervention does. But here's the critical part that most people miss. The effectiveness of this approach has nothing to do with how much you take and everything to do with how and when you take it. Too much too late or paired with the wrong habits and the entire benefit disappears. In some cases, it can even make nighttime symptoms worse. And this is where many people give up. They try it once, do it incorrectly, see no change, and assume the method doesn't work for them. But understanding why the method works is still not enough, because if you choose the wrong option, the wrong amount, or the wrong timing, you may unknowingly cancel out the very benefit you're trying to achieve. And that's what we need to talk about next. By this point, many people finally understand why the one small spoon works, but this is also where most mistakes happen. Because knowing the mechanism is one thing. Using it correctly is something entirely different. And when it's done wrong, people often say, "I tried it, and it didn't work," without realizing they accidentally canceled the benefit themselves. Let me walk you through this carefully because the details matter. The goal of this method is not to fill the stomach. It is to deliver a quiet, steady signal of safety to the brain before sleep. That means the source must release energy slowly, predictably, and without triggering digestion or fluid overload. Based on both physiology and clinical experience, there are 3 options that consistently work when used correctly, and only one should be chosen at a time. The first option is raw, unprocessed honey, just 1 small spoon. Honey provides a natural balance of glucose and fructose that releases energy gradually rather than all at once. This steady release helps prevent the subtle nighttime drop in blood sugar that wakes the brain. Honey also supports the production of serotonin and melatonin, which further encourages deep, stable sleep. But this only works if the honey is real. Highly processed or diluted honey behaves like sugar water. Fast spike, fast crash, no protection. The second option is half of a small banana. Not a full banana, not a large one. Bananas provide gentle carbohydrates along with magnesium and potassium, which help relax smooth muscle and calm nervous system signaling. For people who don't tolerate honey well or have sensitive digestion, this can be an excellent alternative. But portion control is critical. Too much banana becomes digestion, not reassurance. The third option is 7 almonds. Not a handful, not 10, 7. Almonds provide healthy fats, a small amount of protein, and magnesium, all of which slow energy release and support nervous system balance. This option is especially useful for people who are cautious about sugar but still need nighttime stability. Now here's the rule that makes or breaks everything: timing. These options must be used 30 to 45 minutes before sleep, not right before lying down and not hours earlier. Too late and digestion interferes with sleep. Too early and the effect wears off before the vulnerable early morning hours. The second rule is just as important: never take this with water. This is where many people sabotage themselves. Adding water increases stomach volume, increases pressure on the bladder, and forces the kidneys to work during the night. Remember, the goal is to calm the brain, not give the kidneys more fluid to process. I once had a patient tell me I tried honey, but I drank it with warm water because I thought it would be better. He woke up twice that night and assumed the method didn't work. When he tried again, the same amount, no water, his nighttime awakenings dropped by half within days. The difference wasn't the ingredient, it was the method. This approach also requires restraint. More is not better. A larger amount does not mean deeper sleep. It means more digestion, more metabolic activity, and sometimes more nighttime urination. In older adults, subtlety is strength, and this is why so many people fail with this strategy. They change the amount, they change the timing, they mix options, or they abandon it after one night. The body doesn't respond to force, it responds to consistency. When done correctly, this method doesn't knock you out. It reassures your nervous system. It tells the brain that energy is available, danger is low, and there is no need to sound the alarm. And when the brain quiets down, everything downstream follows. But here's the part that truly raises the stakes. Reducing nighttime urination isn't just about better sleep or fewer trips to the bathroom. When this cycle is broken consistently, something much bigger begins to change inside the body. Because what happens next can determine whether your kidneys and heart finally recover or continue wearing down silently night after night. By now you may be thinking, this sounds helpful for sleep. And you're right. But if you stop there, you're still missing the most important part. Because reducing nighttime urination is not just about sleeping better or avoiding the bathroom at 3 a.m. What's really at stake is the long-term survival of your kidneys, your heart, and your independence as you age. Here's why this matters so much. At night, your body is supposed to enter what we call physiological recovery mode. Blood pressure should drop by 10 to 20%. Heart rate should slow. Kidney filtration should decrease. This nightly downshift is not optional, it's essential maintenance. When it doesn't happen, organs wear out faster, even if daytime test results still look normal. In people who wake up to urinate multiple times a night, this recovery mode often never fully activates. Studies in cardiovascular and renal medicine show that frequent nocturnal awakenings are strongly associated with non-dipping blood pressure, meaning the heart keeps working as if it's daytime. Over years, this silent strain significantly increases the risk of heart attack, stroke, and progressive kidney damage. I once treated a patient who told me something I'll never forget. He said, "Doctor, I don't feel sick. I just feel tired of nights." His labs were borderline. His scans were unremarkable. But his nights were fragmented, 3, sometimes 4 awakenings every single night. Within 2 years, his kidney function declined faster than expected, and his blood pressure became harder to control. The warning signs were there all along. They just showed up at night. When nighttime urination decreases consistently, the opposite begins to happen. The kidneys finally get uninterrupted hours of rest. Filtration pressure stabilizes. Micro damage to the delicate blood vessels inside the kidneys slows down. This is not theory, it's physiology, and the heart benefits just as much. When sleep becomes continuous, the autonomic nervous system rebalances. The sympathetic stress signal quiets down. The parasympathetic repair signal takes over. Heart rhythm becomes more stable. Morning blood pressure improves. Over time, this can mean the difference between gradual recovery and slow deterioration. But there is another danger we haven't talked about yet, one that is immediate, physical, and often devastating. Nighttime falls. Every trip to the bathroom in the dark is a risk. Dim lighting, sudden changes in blood pressure when standing, groggy balance. Statistics show that a significant percentage of hip fractures in older adults happen during nighttime bathroom trips. And once a hip fracture occurs, the story often changes: forever loss of mobility, loss of confidence, and in some cases, loss of life within a year. Reducing nighttime urination reduces these risks at their source. Fewer awakenings mean fewer steps in the dark. Fewer sudden blood pressure drops. Fewer moments where one slip can permanently alter a life. This is why I want you to see nighttime urination differently. It's not an inconvenience. It's not just aging. It's an early warning system. And when you respond early by restoring proper nighttime rhythm, you give your body a chance to protect itself. The most powerful part of this is that the intervention is small, gentle, and accessible. No heavy medication, no drastic restriction, just correcting the signal that tells your body whether it's safe to rest. When nights become quieter, days become stronger. Energy improves, mood lifts, and most importantly, organs age more slowly. This is how longevity is protected not through dramatic cures, but through consistent nights of true recovery. But here's the final truth I want you to sit with. If nighttime urination continues unchecked, the damage doesn't announce itself loudly. It accumulates quietly. And whether your kidneys and heart recover or continue wearing down year after year depends on whether you act before that silent erosion becomes permanent. If you've stayed with me until this point, I want you to know something very important. The fact that you're still listening tells me you care about your health, and that already puts you ahead of where many people wait too long. Nighttime urination is not a punishment for getting older, and it is not something you simply have to endure. It's a signal, one, that your body is still communicating with you, still asking for balance, still capable of recovery when it's supported the right way. My advice to you is simple but meaningful. Don't chase quick fixes. Don't force your body. Start with small, gentle changes that respect how your brain, kidneys, and heart are designed to work at night. Pay attention to your sleep. Pay attention to how often you wake up. And remember, consistency matters more than intensity, especially as we age. If this information helped you see your nighttime symptoms in a new way, I encourage you to save this video so you can come back to it, especially on nights when sleep feels frustrating. And if you want to keep learning how to protect your kidneys, your heart, and your long-term independence with clear, practical medical guidance, please subscribe to this channel. I share the latest evidence-based health insights here, focused on prevention, not fear, and on living well, not just living longer. Most importantly, I want to leave you with this message of hope. Your body's not broken. It is adapting. And with the right understanding, the right timing, and the right habits, many of the changes we associate with aging can be slowed, softened, or even reversed. A quieter night can lead to a stronger morning. And protecting your sleep today may be one of the most powerful ways to protect your kidneys and your health for years to come. Take care of yourself, be patient with your body, and I'll see you in the next video.